Hello all, and welcome to our February data science, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and business intelligence application data jam stream. My name is Eralda Nazarko, and I'm a cybersecurity mentor here at TripleTen, and also I'm going to be your host for tonight's data jam. I'm glad to see many of you attending, that you could join tonight for the February data jam stream we are hosting at TripleTen. And also, I'm very happy to see for the first time, actually, a collaboration between three different programs. So what is a code jam? If you are new to this space, let me tell you what a code jam or data jam is. At TripleTen, it is a friendly competition that occurs for our students during their normal coursework. They are super short competitions where a group of our students get together and jam out a bunch of work to meet the prompt. But first of all, I would like to highlight the fact that this data jam, as I mentioned, is very special. For this event, it is our first time, actually. We have students from three different programs: data science, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and business intelligence application programs. This data jam consists of two parts: working on the project and the presentation that will occur tonight. Last week, our participants were divided in teams and challenged to collaboratively evaluate the claim using real US macroeconomic data from Federal Reserve and economic data, and present a clear evidence-based conclusion. So the claim is as the following: inflation surged in the post-COVID period, affecting prices, wages, interest rates, and household finances. But did this shock cause a temporary disruption, or has it fundamentally changed how Americans spend, save, and borrow in today's economy? In this code jam, the mission was to evaluate this claim using real US macroeconomic data from the Federal Reserve and present a clear evidence-based conclusion working collaboratively. Students from all the three programs are part of the team. So today we are very excited to see the results of this work, and the student had only 6 full days to complete their projects. Today, the teams are going to show off their project to all of you who are present tonight and also watching us live. And our judges will review them next week. The judges will be evaluating both the data and the presentation. So we encourage you to support our brave participants in the comments below. Now it is the fun time. We have 2 teams tonight presenting, and because we have students from 3 different programs, teams tonight are a little bit larger than usually. We have 6 students. We have 2 teams. The first one is Inflation Echo, and only 4 team members are present. I'm going to introduce them, and also the other team members who cannot be present tonight. Jill Faldu is here with us tonight. Hamed Taib, Trevor Brooks, Bhavni Balasubramanian. I apologize if I'm not pronouncing your names correctly, but I did my best. I hope you understand. Troy Sanders and Christian Bowers in Graham, who are not present but are part of the Inflation Echo team. So the floor is to you guys, and then I'll ask a few questions once you are done presenting. Thank you.
So, Bhavani, would you share your screen, please?
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
All right, hello everyone. Welcome to Feb DSAI and BIA Code Jam, US Consumer Behavior Post-COVID. On the next slide, you can see our team Inflation Echo. consists of two teams of BIA and DSAI expert. Bhavani from BIA, Jill, Trevor, Troy, and myself, Hamed, are from DS team and AI team. On the next slide, so in 2022, 150 grocery carts only, cost over $200 across millions of households. The shift changed, everyday financial decision. After COVID, Americans saved at record levels. The inflation surged, rose rapidly, interest rate increased at the fastest pace in 40 years. Inflation eventually cooled down, but the key question remains: did customer behavior return to the normal, or did the shock permanently change how Americans spend, save, and borrow? To answer that, we use Federal Reserve economic data and build counterfactual models to test whether pre-COVID behavior still explained to their parents or whether a structure break occurred. So now I'll handle it over to Bhavani to take care of rest.
Hi, everyone. I'm representing the BIA team. Our analysis is based on data from Fred, and we focused on four key indicators: inflation, savings behavior, real consumer spending, and total consumer credit. Let me walk you through our dashboard. I hope you can see my dashboard, where we outline what we believe is a structural shift in the US consumer behavior over the past decade. I would like to start this story by highlighting this number, which is $1.61 billion savings deficit. Since 2021, the American household safety net hasn't just shrunk, it has effectively developed a massive hole compared to our 10-year historical baseline. To understand why this happened, look at this scissor effect. In early 2022, the inflation spiked to peak to nearly 9%. As it rose, it physically forced the saving rate down. We moved from a period of high pandemic protection in 2020, where the savings were over 30%, to a new normal in 2024, where savings have flattened out at around 5.4%. The bottom row shows the consequences. As the savings lines dropped, look at the consumer debt. The bars, they shot up. People are filling the gap with credit cards. Finally, this last chart shows the purchasing power trap. Notice how the spending growth went negative in 2020, but in 2024 and 25, you can see that the bars for the spending and the inflation are almost the same height. This proves that every 1% increase in spending, inflation is taking that gain away. Let me go back to the summary slide and quickly recap the main takeaway through three key findings: the shift, the impact, and the risk. Our recommendation is simple: monitor the debt to savings ratio. The savings gap is no longer temporary, it appears structural. That means the focus now shifts from spending levels to financial stability. With that, I will hand it over to DS team to validate these findings through the machine learning models. Thank you.
Okay, so now the next slide, please. Thank you. Now that we understand what changed, here's how we tested it. We built machine learning models supported by target feature engineering. We created credit to spend ratio to capture financial pressure, year-over-year growth metrics to measure momentum, inflation year-over-year reflect price stress, a regime variable to test for structural breaks. This feature allowed the model to detect whether behavioral shift are temporary or it's structural. Next, please. The chart spans three regimes. Pre-COVID is green, COVID shock yellow, and post-COVID red. What stands out is that many variables in the red zone do not return to their pre-COVID levels. That visible gap is what our regime variable is designed to test. Now we let the models determine whether that shift is statistically significant or not. On the next slide, we cover the correlation. We have seen the trends. Let's look at how those variables relate. Spending, credit, and CPI are highly correlated above 0.96, moving almost together. As price rose, spending and borrowing rose. The saving rate moves into the opposite direction. As inflation and growth accelerated, saving declined. So pattern is consistent. And on next slide, uh, the question is, did the relation between this variable actually change after COVID? We split the data into the same regime to see if that relation shift across regime. Let's find out. Jill will take care of rest.
So after splitting the data, we run linear regression separately to test whether the same relationship held before and after COVID. And the answer is clearly no. Pre COVID, the model fits well, residuals are random, everything is stable. Post COVID, the model expected saving rates to rise, but reality went the opposite direction and kept falling. This is a broken relationship, and our first direct evidence that the hypothesis holds. Next, we did Rupture's model. So linear regression showed us the relationship broke. Now Ruptures tells us exactly when. In 2020 and 2022, as you guys can see, every variable, saving rate, spending growth, credit growth, all broke at the same point. This statistically confirms that COVID was not a temporary disruption. It was turning point our hypothesis is built around. After that, we worked on a profit model. We showed the relationship broke and when it broke. Now, profit answers what if COVID never happened? The dashed line is the expected baseline, the blue line is reality. Saving rates fell below and never recovered. Credit stayed elevated above historical norms. That gap is the permanent shift our hypothesis predicted. At the last, we did Sarima model, and finally, it conforms from a completely different modeling approach. Same story, the orange counterfactual sits around 7 to 8%, where saving rates should have been. The actual blue line dropped well below and never came back. Three different models, linear regression, ruptures, profit, and now Sarima, all pointing to same conclusion. The real shift is real, it is permanent, and the hypothesis hold. Now I'll give it to Trevor.
You're on mute, Trevor. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you, Hamed. So we did discover that our findings do confirm the BIA team's findings. We did confirm our hypothesis that consuming behavior did change post-COVID. Our profit model was very confident and showed that consumer behavior or consumers are saving 3.5% less than they would have had the COVID economic impact not happened. We also ran a OLS regression to show that inflation was a key driver of this break. As we demonstrated before, inflation increased at record rates, savings dropped, and once inflation stabilized back to the norm, savings never really returned to normal. We did want to check the credit to spend ratio as well, just to see how consumers were handling this rise in inflation. And it did show that they aren't really leveraging debt yet, the spending is going higher quicker than the debt, but it's overall quite stable. Just the key finding was that the savings have dropped dramatically. And then I'd like to talk a little bit about some shortcomings in the research, as well as some future research that can be done. One of the biggest things is you can't really confirm it as a permanent break with just a few years of data. It can often take over a decade for the economy to return to norms. So yes, as the current day, we are not performing, or the consumer is not behaving as expected, but that could still return back to normal. And the other thing that we didn't quite have time to analyze was the income of the consumer, just to see if that might actually be keeping pace with the new cost of living and the high inflation. And those are some questions that we'd like to answer in the future. And I'd like to thank you all for your time. And now we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, all good.
Yeah, we hear you.
So thank you, team. Thank you for presenting. Inflation Echo was the team that just presented. So I have a few questions for you. How did you synchronize? How did you work together? Being the first time that we had students coming from 3 different programs. I know that you introduced a little bit who did what, but if you can share a little bit more about your experience.
I'll start. So the way we kind of divided the work on the data science and AI machine learning side is we kind of did our work individually. We met a couple times to discuss strategy, but we wanted to create our own models with shared data and see if we came to similar conclusions, just to create a stronger argument. And then we also work closely with the BIA team just to make sure our stories continue to align and that we're using similar data or the same data, as not to skew our research.
Any other feedback before I continue to the next question?
Yes, I would like to add, we mostly we had like a same time zone, but we had some of them from other time zones. So we did collaborated. We try to meet every day, possible to discuss where everybody stands and to discuss any problems or any confusion we have. So I think that really helped us. And for modeling too, we everybody try to for machine learning and DS and ML, everybody try to do their part, like for modeling, so everybody gets an experience. And then because machine learning is kind of a topic where everybody thinks differently, and then you can have different viewpoints, and that's really important, and that's why we wanted to keep that, and we decided that everybody can participate in modeling. So that really helped us to bring the different viewpoints.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Trevor. The next question that I have is, in summary, what are some of the tools that you guys use to analyze, create your models, and also visualize the results, your information?
So Bhavani, you want to cover the BIR?
Yeah. So for the visualization, I used Power BI. So I came up with those key features, and then came up with the KPIs first. And I presented that to the team, and it aligned with the DS team also. So then with those findings, I came up with the charts for the visualization.
And from DS part, we mainly use the Python and library in Python in order to code and visualize everything. And I think this collaboration and using these tools helps us to demonstrate all those charts and all those information that we put in the presentation. And also, I just wanted to thank Bhavani because she took care of the BIA's section of our presentation and the basically task alone. And we had a chance of working together, Jill, Trevor, myself, and initially Troy. So one of the outstanding thing that I realized was no matter what part of the project was, whoever could take care of a portion of it, just jump on it and start working on it. That is a definition of a team that I was pleasure to work with, and I'm so glad that I was part of this team. And thank to everyone in team and hats off.
Yeah. I would like to add something on that. I truly agree with what Hamid said because the collaboration was amazing in this team. I didn't expect this was the first time I was doing the code jam, but I was totally impressed, and the help and the appreciation I got for the work, it motivated me to do better every day. So I really thank the whole team.
And based on your feedback, guys, I can tell that this was a successful collaboration because you learned from each other, you supported each other, and you achieved the final goal, the overall goal. Now, talking about that, in the last part of your presentation, you mentioned that if you have more time, you can expand on more points that are in your future plans. Do you have any practical steps? When do you think you can implement those future tasks?
So the next step would be to inspect the consumer's income and develop a model that just sees if that's aligning or if that has broken, and really drive our biggest concern with what we found, that savings are diminishing, and so the consumer is not turning to debt yet, but if income does not keep up, then they will might have to over leverage their debt, which could be devastating to the U.S. economy.
Yeah. And that was a statistical part, and the emotional part we were actually thinking, although we just thought as a joke, but actually it's very serious to analyze the mental health, how it shifted pre-COVID and post-COVID. Yeah, we thought that it would be a great analysis to do and find out.
And also correlation between the impact of inflation and mental health. You are
Yes.
referring to? Okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for presenting your work and being with us tonight to present. So now it's time to move on to the next team. We have a really interesting name, Spandemic. Spend, and the half part of the name of the team is part of the pandemic, which is totally related to the topic that they have analyzed. So we have 60 members. Not all of them are present today. We have Victor, we have Nawang Rinchen, Menachem Ozdoba, Adam Chow, Sonia Kadka, Grant Wilkes, which is with us tonight. Beside Victor, everybody's here. And part of presentation is already pre-recorded. So if the rest of the teams are going to add their results and their data into the presentation, please, Spandemic, it's your time to shine now. Thank you.
Quick question, should we start with Victor's presentation? That's the question to Pandemic.
I think Rinchen is gonna start.
Yeah, so my thing is it's just like a just quick like 3 slides, just kind of getting the introduction to the actual presentation. But yeah, I mean we can do are we using the GitHub's repository?
You could use what you want.
Okay.
Yeah, please start.
1 second. Where is it sharing? Oh, there it is. Okay. So this is just a really quick just introduction to what we'll be presenting. So I kind of wrote it like a little like a story from like steps. So our team name is Pandemics. So the main question is, has inflation permanently changed consumer behavior in the US? So the first step was the macro shock. So We started with the fundamentals first. So after COVID, prices didn't just spike, they shot up and nearly never really came down. So to fight that, the Fed sharply raised interest rates, which made borrowing more expensive. And while stimulus checks briefly boosted incomes, that support didn't last. So basically, households were left dealing with higher prices and higher borrowing costs without the extra support. And step two was behavioral response. So how did households do? So at first, they kept spending mostly because of stimulus, gave them some wiggle room. But once that cushion disappeared, savings fell fast, even below pre-COVID levels. At the same time, debt started climbing in record highs. Rather than growing their savings, household increasingly relied on credit to manage rising costs. And step three was the human impact. So we have some consumer sentiment index, the consumer loan delinquency rates, and retail and food service sales over time. So this basically shows us how humans feel. Even with low unemployment rates, consumer confidence is near historic lows. That tells us something important. People may have jobs, but financially they feel squeezed. And we're now seeing delinquency rise as savings run out and retail sales confirm it. The stimulus surge is over and momentum is fading, so people are maxed out and spending more carefully. And with that, that's just the introduction, and then I'll be handing it off to Mendel and Adam for the modeling and forecasting parts.
All right, I'm just gonna share my screen. Let me just find, oh gosh. Give me one moment. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically, we first downloaded the data sets, as Rinchin explained, and what we start doing is we start making models, and me and Adam made different models. We just wanted to show that from all angles that our model is correct, and I made a linear regression model, which basically shows, as you can see in the picture, for example, spending, which is if we would take the model, we would get one amount, and what actually happened based on the pandemic and everything that was caused by it, that there was entirely different number, and we could see from the different metrics that it uh, it didn't predict anything that would happen after the pandemic. And the same thing, we do the linear regression on the savings rate, that we predicted that savings rate will be in a certain way, and the savings rate I mean, they initially went up because of the stimulus checks, but they dropped after that. They plummeted. And the only thing that's more interesting is the credit, that obviously that people continued to borrow even though their financial situation was much worse. But it seems to be that we predicted more or less correct, even though not perfectly. But obviously that's for very different reasons. And then I just showed in the code that there are different relationships between spending and saving, that there are different, for example, inflation very much affected spending, and and unemployment rate negatively affected spending, meaning to say that because there was less employment, people spent less. The savings as well, we find that inflation had a negative coefficient. And in terms of credit, we also find the relationships between higher rates, and so on and so forth. So we could all see that in the code. And now I'm going to give it over to Adam to give over. He has different models that he proves more or less the same thing, but it's just interesting to see that we can prove this with different types of models. So I'm giving it over to Adam now.
All right, I'm gonna try to share my screen real quick. Uh, Wait, can you stop sharing your screen real quick? So I could. Yo. All right, wait, hold on. Yo, Mandel, can you stop sharing your screen real quick? Bro. Okay, so we decided to create another model on top of linear regression because we didn't think linear regression would take the whole entire picture. So we decided to also implement a sorry max model. The reason why we chose this was because it was able to implement trends, it was able to read, find patterns in seasons, and it was able to use momentum to allow it to predict future trends. And it also, one of the great things about Sorry Max is that it was able to allow other features and factors to help predict the future. So as we can see, I mean, we couldn't fit this on the presentation, so we'll keep it scrappy here. We see that unemployment rate and average hourly earnings played a really huge effect in predicting, um, you know, personal consumption, saving rates, and credit cards. So what does this model tell us? Well, we use the model to predict the real personal consumption expenditures. As you can see, the red line is, the predicted without COVID. And then the black line is the actual. And we can see that it's differentiates very differently from the actual, as you can see um, from these graphs. But here is the interesting thing. As we can see for personal savings, we see that previous months helped predict future months. And so that's why we couldn't rely just on a linear regression. Same thing with consumer credit outstandings. We can see that this one here means that previous quarters, previous months allowed us to accurately predict future credit card outstandings. And if we dive deeper into our gap analysis, we can see that for consumption, so if we do zero, this top line as the predicted, we can see that obviously this paints a pretty, accurate picture. We can see that during COVID, spending decreased a lot and it still decreased over time. Same thing with personal savings, where zero is the predicted. We can see that during COVID, savings went up, it spiked, right? Because people weren't spending. And then over time, as we eased out, savings decreased. And then credit cards, we can see that this is paints a pretty accurate picture. As inflation rates went up, people started to borrow less. And then here is our trading residuals. We can see that trading went pretty well. It's pretty random. So yeah, hand it off to Grant for the business intelligence side.
Wonderful. Thank you so much um, for that, guys. Okay. So to be very brief, BIA, all the stuff we found exactly follows everyone else's. In fact, you can see my screen, right? Perfect. These graphs, when Rinchin pulled up his data, I was quite surprised because the data I prepared look exactly like his, despite us coming from different disciplines and different directions. I took the raw data that we were provided, cut it off at 2018, so we had a couple of years pre-COVID to provide a good baseline, set every standard all of the units so it wasn't in like percentages and hundreds of billions, and had everything start at 100 in January of 2018. And you can see that over time, both consumption and credit have increased. Both of them have took a divot in early 2020 in conjunction with with COVID. Massive drop or a good shock to spending during that time, which makes sense. People can't go anywhere, people can't spend, and savings was the inverse of that. Massive shock for this one. In fact, it starts at 100, it over quadruples just um in the first bit of 2020 because no one could go anywhere. But after a lot of shocks with stimulus and everything, it peters out with inflation and filtering just for post-COVID years. We see that it's still net that savings never actually or only creep over that baseline of 100 a couple times in mid 2023 and then early 2024. And it has yet to recover fully from COVID to pre-pandemic levels. If we go over to Sony's wonderful data, you can see lots of the same stuff as soon as it finishes loading. You can see personal like available income for spending and actual consumption both increase over time and almost linearly continue after COVID, almost as if there was no disruption whatsoever. But the massive drop off of COVID does provide an impact into the economy. Down here, all of this is wonderful data that Sony put together. This is inflation. You can see throughout the 2010s kind of piddles around, but spikes through 2020 and then tapers off. Oh, if only I could refresh this page so the data would actually pull up. But you can, I could actually pull up the numbers, you would see 2020 is quite high. It's about 181, which, where is it? Is what we had over here for what I found in my much less professional looking presentation than she had. But then down in 2024, it is the lowest that it's ever been, showing that through all of the ins and outs with COVID, that people are spending more than they ever have. People are borrowing more than they ever have. But since rates are so high, since inflation has caused prices to be so much higher, people's savings are the thing that gets sacrificed. People are eating into their savings in order to cover all these other expenses. And it's something that the economy has not fully recovered from, nor is it likely that it will recover. And this is due to much incorrect and poor governmental intervention, heavy-handed Fed policies, and all of which have created this very negative feeling within the economy, despite outwardly good measures caused by consumption and credit. And so, pending further investigation involvement into the economy or things changing, the negative sentiments will remain and people will still struggle. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. And we have some bonus materials from one of your teammates, Victor. So let me just quickly share this one.
Hi everyone, my name is Victor and I worked on the data science part. So our question is whether the inflation permanently changed how the Americans spend, save and borrow. So I just used the structural break detection, such as ARIMA counterfactual forecasting and the statistical regime tested on 3 core thread datasets. Then the algorithm automatically detected the breakpoints in all the 3 indicators and all clustering around 2021. Then I just trained the ARIMA models on the pre-COVID data to forecast what would happen without the shock. So the CHO test confirms that all the 3 series have statistically significant structural breaks with the p-values close to zero. And then we have the spending is 11% above the counterfactual and still increasing, and the saving rates dropped from 7% to 3.5% with no recovery, and the credit is elevated but kind of slowing. So the verdict is yes, the inflation has permanently changed the consumer behavior, and Americans have settled into a new normal of the higher spending and lower saving, and the gap is not closing. Thank you.
Okay, pandemic. Thank you so much for your presentation. Now I have a few questions. So, in a summary, can you recall all the tools that you use to analyze your data and visualize your findings?
Yeah, so in BIA we used Google Sheets naturally, as well as both of us used Tableau, I believe.
In Python, we used Python and we used two different models to look at the data. And then we used some plotting from Matplotlib to just visualize it better.
So which models did you use? If you can mention those, please.
We used linear regression and my friend Adam used, I think he used Fermion.
SARI max.
Okay.
Yeah.
And any other tool as an overall team? Or this is what you used mostly. Okay, so what skills do you want to develop more after today's experience based on this analysis? This is real data, Federal Reserve data. This is a real problem. I mean, we need an answer because it affects each one of us, the data that you analyze. So what is something else that you feel the need to develop after this experience that you had at the Code Jam?
If we were to take this one step further, we could use more complex models instead of just these, kind of basic forecasting models, right? We're going to use like, for example, LSTM, where it's able to aggregate or use a bunch of outside data, a bunch of features to be able to like predict very key and niche, predictions.
How many features your data had?
We used, hold on, let me count.
And
We
how
used
many
about
records?
9
How many records in total?
records. Oof. Do the counting on that. Wait, sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We actually used 11 different data sets.
Oh,
Records.
11
Yeah.
different data sets. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think it's a reasonable data set. So you think that more will give you a better result, better perspective in forecasting?
Yeah, okay, so when we used the SARI max model, it was only able to use, it only found that two of the two features were like very good predictors.
Okay.
Yeah, but if we wanted to take it to another level, I feel like every feature or every feature does support a little bit, right? This one just picked, the ones with the biggest trends, biggest swings. Yeah.
Okay. Do you do any cleaning in the beginning of data or any pre-processing?
Yeah, so in the beginning, I mean we did some we obviously loaded everything in first, renamed some of the columns, and then once we adjusted the time periods for all the master DF, some of the columns were missing, like the data is missing. So for example, uh We just interpolated them basically, just linearly. So there was like two columns missing, two with like I think like 80. One column had like 80 missing values, the other one had like one. So but yeah, we just interpolated them, and then from there, yes, pretty much, yeah,
In
pretty much.
terms of classes, did you have any data imbalance that you had to use some additional records just to balance the classes for the data set that you analyzed, or you didn't have to do that?
I mean, from what I can see, we didn't have to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, and one more thing we did was we started our training like around 2010, right after the financial crisis. So that
Okay.
wouldn't impact our training.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Now, overall, I keep repeating that this is the first time, at least, that I'm introducing a code jam that we have 3 different program students from 3 different programs. Would you recommend this experience to other students who are watching or will watch our live? And how can you encourage them to participate in the future?
I think it's a learning experience, right? Just the way like we all have to contribute together. So there's 3 disciplines. So I guess, trying to collaborate efficiently, do some meetups, like daily, seeing what we learned, like what we'll use in the presentation. Um, but I mean, I think it was a pretty good experience. It's my first time in a code jam, so I learned a lot from the previous team as well. You guys did amazing. But yeah.
Thank you, Rinchen. Anybody else that would like to add something before we? Yes.
Excellent way to keep your skills up and prevent them from getting rusty.
Glad to hear that. Glad to hear that. Thank you. Thank you, Grant. So, and that's all we have for tonight here at TripleTen for the February data science, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and business intelligence data jam presentations. Thank you so much for participating and watching us. If you are a TripleTen student and you are interested in participation, check out your career channels in the hub, where you can find more information regarding the upcoming events. I would like to thank also the organizers of this data jam, Arina, Mike, Marcella, Nadia, Natasha, Olivia, Dennis, Anastasia. Thank you. Also, thank you one more time to participants. And this is all we have for tonight. Good night from us. My name is Eralda Nazarko, and thank you for watching and have a great evening.
Right. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.